This is the height of Magic for me. Speaking of the height of Magic, looks like Mogelgaard's like triple sleeved here. Probably pretty tall deck.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Look, sometimes you just want to keep your cards protected.
Island is where he will start.
Tomio Field Researcher sleeves. Big fan of favorite Tomio, easy.
Watery Grave tap for Mullen. Castle Vantress for Mogelgaard. Choked Estuary on 2 for Mullen. Shows an island, and here is the first spell of the game. It is Thought Erasure. We'll get a look at Mogelgaard's hand here. See a hand of 2 Omen of the Sea, a Teferi Hero of Dominaria, a Censor, a Dovin's Veto, and an Azorius Charm. Looking for some lands, but a lot of ways to find them.
So in a lot of cases, I feel like a lesser player would just fire off the Censor here, right? It's probably the weakest card in your hand, and getting to trade it for what's effectively a Thoughtseize feels very nice, but Mogelgaard is missing white mana at this point, and the deck needs to be able to keep up on land drops in order to hang in a blue mirror like this.
Also, a card like Censor face up matters less than a card like Spell Pierce. If you think Mullen's just going to play around it, just cycle it.
Exactly.
Mullen's going to give this one a think. A lot of these cards are pretty interchangeable. I imagine he's looking most closely at the Teferi and the Dovin's Veto.
I would imagine the same. Those are the things that can actually run away with a game, and everything else, Mullen has a little bit of agency in trying to figure out how to weave through them.
Teferi is the take. Mullen's going to surveil an island. Mogelgaard fires off Omen of the Sea, finds a couple ones he likes. Shocks for Hound Fountain. He'll go to 18. And passes turn. Pretty free to shock in this matchup, though, you know. The first one puts you in range of 3 inverter hits. I don't know if Mogelgaard's scared of that.
Yeah, so pre-sideboard, you're going to end up in a lot of situations where it is much harder to actually close a game with an Inverter of Truth in the combat step. Mogelgaard's still going to have things like Supreme Verdict in deck, still going to have access to a bunch of things like Azorius Charm, Cast Out, Seal Away, that may just otherwise kind of rot in his hand.
Sure. Fabled Passage, land number 3 for Mullen. We see the second Omen for Mogelgaard. Scries 1 top, 1 bottom. Cycles the Censor.
So something that Mogelgaard did earlier is scry a Censor to the top. I really like that when you get to cycle the other and convince Mullen that shield is down.
Yeah, that is pretty techy. Land 4 is Glacial Fortress. Here's Gideon of the Trials. See if Mullen has anything to say about that. Planeswalker resolves, makes an emblem straight away. Not like extra loyalty really matters in the matchup. Mullen's going to crack that Fabled Passage.
And from here, Mogelgaard likely just wants to attack with Gideon every turn for the rest of the game.
I buy that. Mullen finds Island off the passage.
So this creates an interesting dynamic if you're in Mogelgaard's seat, or excuse me, if you're in Mullen's seat, where Mullen both now has to race this Gideon, but his primary way of racing, it doesn't actually work anymore. And so he's going to need to find something like Hero's Downfall to actually take this down.
Now you were mentioning it's tough to cross the finish line with an inverter in the matchup. Also pretty tough to attack Gideon down with one.
Exactly.
Choked Estuary for Mullen, shows an island. Hero's Downfall, though, that's a clean answer.
Big pickup for Mullen there.
Gideon down. The emblem left behind, not really of any value. Back to Sean Mogelgaard. Finds a Castle Ardenvale. Plays that as land number 5 and passes.
Love a good draw-go stratagem.
Yeah, Castle Ardenvale with the face-up Dovin's Veto. You got some time here.
Right. And Castle Vantress is one that's going to help dig you to those power plays as well if you want to find your other Gideon, a Teferi, anything in that vein. There's a whole slew of Planeswalkers that can help Mogelgaard lock this game up.
Island is land number 5 for Mullen. That is going to be a strength of Azorius over Dimir Inverter. We see the Dimir decks just play goofy lands that tap for mana. Mogelgaard's lands do something. Going to activate a castle. Looks like he's going for the human token. Mullen takes the opportunity to dig through time, though. Takes a look at the top 7. Yeah, shields were down on the Dovin's Veto, rather.
This is a spot where Mullen is likely operating under the assumption that you want to make sure that you can actually just slip your spells through. I'm not sure if it's a great long-term strategy unless you think you can just blank Dovin's Veto forever. Dig Through Time's powerful, but it is not actually one of the game-winning spells.
Sure. If you can find 2 things that are worth a veto, though, getting it under just seems ideal.
Oh, absolutely.
Mullen giving this one a think. It's not an easy dig, it would seem. He asked for Oracle Text on Azorius Charm. He knows about one in Mogelgaard's hand. I think it's probably a third mode question. Listen, I know it draws a card. I know you can top deck an attacker or a blocker, but what the heck else does that thing do?
Is it like a disenchant or...
Creatures you control gain lifelink, not the most important mode.
You should speak for yourself.
I've seen it. I've seen it be big.
You ever given a Boros Reckoner lifelink and then indestructible?
I've seen it. I've heard about it.
Look with your special eyes.
Mogelgaard's going to attack, play a land, pass a turn back, Mullen to 19, uses an opt end step. Draws Thoughtseize for turn. That ain't bad. Plays Drowned Catacomb as his land, uses that for the Thoughtseize. See if that one resolves. Often those are worth fighting over. Mogelgaard's going to let it go. We see the hand now. Steal away the known Azorius Charm, the known Veto, and that sneaky Censor you mentioned earlier. It's less sneaky now. Mullen's also hit enough land drops where Mogelgaard already wanted to cycle it, though.
Right. The idea here with this Censor is either you're looking at cycling it or you're having it be the final nail in a big counter war later on. You run into the issue with Dovin's Veto that you're not going to end up in a big counter war since Mullen can't really do anything about it.
Dovin's Veto is the take. Mullen to 17. Now here's an attempt at Jace Wielder of Mysteries. Mogelgaard's going to go to work looking for a counterspell. Cast the Azorius Charm to draw a card. And it's just going to resolve. That one Censor, not going to do it. Mullen has 1 mana left over. Jace Wielder of Mysteries is now on the battlefield, and that one-sided Howling Mine, that's a big game in Blue Mirrors.
Yeah, absolutely. Just being able to accrue resources on this level is something that Mogelgaard's going to struggle to keep up with.
Mullen's going to mill Mogelgaard and draw a card. You see a couple lands flipped over. Mogelgaard's going to scry 2 with Wormly Omen of the Seas. Cycles the Censor. Looks like 2 cards kept on top. So we go back over to Mogelgaard. Field of Rune is the land. Human attacks Jace down to 4. And now it's Colin Mullen's turn again.
That means Mullen is going to get another activation with this Jace.
Woof. And something you don't see in Mogelgaard's build, he has like planeswalkers that can attack other planeswalkers, but I'm not seeing Detention Sphere in the main deck, which can be a big way to fight permanence.
No, it feels like most of the things he's leaned into here are Supreme Verdict and then just blanking other kinds of permanents with Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, Teferi, Time Raveler. There's a stray Cast Out.
Mullen just with a 3-card graveyard. But he lost most of the information he had on Mogelgaard's hand. We saw a lot of cycling, a lot of scrying. He knows about a Seal Away. He's going to start his turn with an attempt at Narset. That's going to meet a Sinister Sabotage. Narset's countered. Mogelgaard will Surveil. Puts a Hollowed Fountain in the graveyard. Mullen does have the Inverter in hand. Little scary to run it out so just yet. Jace is going to go to 5. It's going to mill Mogelgaard. See Cast Out and Supreme Verdict hitting the bin as Mullen draws. Finds Fatal Push. Not really a good one here. It can destroy that human token. Mullen's kind of managing the size of his graveyard in this game at this point, though.
Right, really just doing his best to make sure that when you cast the Inverter, you're going to win the game in that turn cycle.
Mogelgaard's going to field a rune, a Watery Grave. Mullen responds with that push on the token.
And this is Mogelgaard recognizing that he wants to put extra cards in Mullen's graveyard.
Love it. And, the Jace has been targeting him. So he figures, you know what? Seems like you don't want that in the bin. So that's where I'm going to put it. So I don't see this often, but there is the looming threat of the Jace getting up to 8. It does actually have another ability, the -8 to draw 7, and then you can win the game if you run out of cards.
It's actually funny that they had to tack that on to the activation, because if your Jace was at exactly 8 cards and you decked yourself, you lost the game because the Jace wasn't in play when the ability actually resolved.
Definitely helps a lot at being a 2 loyalty ability Planeswalker to make that all fit on the card. Mogelgaard just draws a card, plays a land, passes. Draw goes what he came to play. Mullen, though, this is just the 3rd turn with the active Jace. In fairness, a number of the cards in the main deck are pretty blank, but that's true on both sides.
Right, there's, a solid 8 to 10 cards that just don't matter on both sides.
Here's an attempt at Inverter of Truth. That's going to meet Sinister Sabotage. Surveil will stay on top for Mogelgaard. Correction. Teferi Time Raveler will be surveilled away. Tap of 2 for Mullen. Cast is Thassa's Oracle. 5 pips. This is actually a pretty good amount of selection.
Yeah, this isn't quite Vampiric Tutor, but it ain't too shabby, that's for sure. Likely just digging for another copy of Inverter of Truth here.
5 to the bottom.
Might have settled for Dig Through Time.
Jace is going to plus again. Mogelgaard milled 2. Mullen draws. Plays Fabled Passage. Passes the turn.
Fabled Passage an awkward one when you have that many cards you don't want on the bottom of your deck, and it puts an additional card in your graveyard.
Yeah, we were talking about the upside of that card last round in Sultai Delirium, but some funny downside here.
All right, so look at how aggressively Mogelgaard is scrying, looking for that Gideon.
Yeah. Fires off that Omen of the Sea, cycles Irrigated Farmland. And this is all on his turn, as he uses the rest of his mana on Teferi Time Raveler. And that resolves. That's going to plus. Sadly, sacrificed both of his omens, so you can't do the bounce my omen thing. Also, there's a Thassa's Oracle on the other side of the table, so not inviting with only 1 loyalty there. But passes with Teferi on 5.
Mogelgaard at the point where it feels like he doesn't think he can actually beat the card Inverter of Truth anymore, and is just doing whatever he can to find an answer.
Jace is going to hit Mogelgaard for 2 more cards. Mullen draws. Mullen plays a Swamp. Have you ever seen somebody just mill the other player, just plussing constantly?
Not outside of a mirror.
Hero's Downfall takes care of that Teferi. Mogelgaard scrying in the upkeep with Castle Vantress. Really trying to churn through that deck, and just concedes. Yeah, I think based on the cards that were milled over there, he doesn't think he can win anymore.
Yeah, it's likely a spot where basically these co-condition light control decks can end up in spots against a deck milling a ton of cards where you don't feel like you can actually win, or you only have, say, 1 or 2 kill conditions left, and time is a real factor.
This is what I like to refer to as a tight concession. I think that there's a lot of respect to the round clock, like you said. Mogelgaard needs the ability to win 2 games, and he doesn't think that that's going to be one of them.
Right. This is the position where Mogelgaard isn't saying he's 0% to win, but if you're, say, 10% to win, and it's going to take you 10 more minutes to lose, then the minutes are more valuable than the percentage points.
Players going to sideboard. I expect this to be kind of heavy on both sides. For Collins Mullen, the options are 2 Legion's End, 2 Mystical Dispute, 2 Damping Sphere, 2 Jace Fringe Prodigy, a Narset Porter of Veils, a Cast Down, a Drown in the Lock, a Kalitas, a Pack Rat, a Tyrant's Scorn, and a Liliana the Last Hope.
So I'm expecting a little bit of a transformation on Mullen's side. Obviously, these Mystical Disputes going to be great against a blue deck. That's just the text on the card. But Jace Fringe Prodigy, Narset Porter of Veils, Drown in the Lock, and maybe even Pack Rat as a way to kind of have a threat that Mogelgaard is forced to respect, where you don't want to draw a ton of them, but the first one is a ton of them.
Sure. For Mogelgaard, he has 3 Mystical Dispute of his own, 3 Ether Gust, 2 Dream Trawler, 2 Rest in Peace, a Narset of his own, a Baffling End, a Settled Wreckage, Gideon, Ally of Zendikar, and Monastery Mentor is the one of.
So in a lot of ways, Mogelgaard's plan here, the cards he's bringing in are worth just as much as the cards that he's not going to waste draw steps on anymore. We saw how much he was emphasizing scrying in that first game because he recognized selection was important when you have as many things like Seal Away that you just never want to ever draw. So I'm looking at things that honestly just kind of have text boxes in a lot of cases. These are Mystical Dispute. Rest in Peace is actually quite good against a Dig Through Time deck. It also forces Mullen into a position where it's much scarier to commit an inverter if, let's say, you're the Thassa's Oracle then dies, you literally lose the game.
Yep. Makes a lot of sense. We're playing Pioneer this weekend on the SCG Tour, but coming up, we have our Modern Regional Championships. These are March 7th. Again, that's a modern format, and these are all across the United States. You can see our various locations here. I'm a soft lock to hit up Outpost 2000 and beyond in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I actually really like playing in these events. I've played in, let me see, I think 3 of these sites in my life before, because, you know, Wasteland was near one of the Pro Tours one time. Knoxville is the one that was close to where I lived for a while. Friends in Durham. There's a real sense of community in a lot of them, but you're still actually playing for stakes. There are a lot of things you can actually win. You know, 8 different invites to the Invitational going out. I really, really enjoy playing at these things.
Yeah, get your Invitational invite, get your share of those cash prizes, get your exclusive play mat if you're one of the first 200 players to pre-register at each location, as well as the corresponding token. Love this one.
It has a real Akon's Run feel to it.
Yeah, definitely. I believe it's called the 3 Fates. The 3 Fates seem to be running, hiding, and screaming. You can find all this information at go.sarcitygames.com/regionals.
I am furious at how hard I just laughed in front of thousands of people at that awful joke.
I have that effect on people, making
That's
them
just
furious.
A fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I have had more than one dinner with you.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
Yeah. Could I get the macaroni with extra cheese, light cheese?
Both players keep it on 7. Hallowed Fountain tap for Mogelgaard. Mullen's going to shock for Watergrave to 18. Is it a Thoughtseize or is it an Opt? Looks like an Opt as we go back to Mogelgaard. Maybe a Dispute.
Yeah, holding up Dispute when you don't know about something like Search for Azcanta being in the 75 is big.
Another tapped Hallowed Fountain for Mogelgaard. Mullen will fire off Opt. Given the scry a think. Definitely a matchup where you have to play a couple turns ahead at all times. It will not end quickly. Goes to the bottom, draws and draws for turn.
Legacy players, your next round pairings have been posted.
Shocks for another Watery Grave. Goes to 16.
Not too worried about the life total. One of the avenues for Azorius to win out of nowhere is to have something like Monastery Mentor.
Speaking of Monastery Mentor, Glacial Fortress Mentor on turn 3 from Mogelgaard. Mullen probably not flush with answers to this.
No, this is the spot where Mullen is really going to need to have something like his Hero's Downfall that he had last game.
He will opt in response. Though you can't dispute this one off 1 mana. Goes to the bottom and draws a card. Looks like another opt. He'll cast that. Scrying once again. Goes to the bottom, draws. Mullen really sculpting the bottom cards of his deck. Mentor is good, though. Ooh, and there is Hero's Downfall right on time. Off-Drown Catacomb.
That's how we drew it up.
That Mentor is a one-of, so that's a big sigh of relief.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Table Passage, getting into the Trials. Now, less relieved is Mullen.
Yeah, this is what Mentor was paving the way for. This is the real thing that Mogelgaard wanted to work out.
Well, how about 2 Heroes Downfall? That one's not a one-of.
Ooh, that's so huge for Mullen here. Mogelgaard was really banking on one of those sticking around.
No 4th land for Mullen, though, as he passes back.
That's a big deal in one of these blue mirrors as well. It feels like this could still go in either direction.
We're going to see another opportunity. If Mogelgaard can just slam some big permanent again, for example, to Fairy Hero of Dominaria, you'll start to see him run away with it.
Oh, absolutely. This is an opportunity for Mogelgaard to run away with the game if you can just have some other threat following all of these up.
Mogelgaard uses the Fabled Passage. We go back to his turn. Land number 5, and there is... it's a Time Raveler. That's fine.
That's actually pretty good when you imagine a lot of the things that Mullen is bringing to the table at this point are counter spells in terms of interaction. Just shutting them down is a big deal.
Makes sense. Mullen's going to draw. He's going to cast Thought Erasure. Take a look at 2 Sinister Sabotage and a Supreme Verdict.
Verdict being in the library, showing a little bit of respect for things like Pack Rat.
You see Mullen with the Mystical Dispute at this point in time, going to be stranded in his hand. The Erasure grabs one of those sabotages. Mullen finds one he likes, leaves it on top of the Surveil.
Imagine it's a land.
Yeah, it makes sense as he misses the 4th land drop once again. Mogelgaard draws. He's going to -3 to Fairy to draw again.
Likely just looking for something to capitalize on Mullen stumbling here.
Mullen draws a card he kept on top. It's Watery Grave. No big surprise there.
Gotta feel like there's a bit of a sigh of relief almost on Mullen's side, actually getting able to pick up that 4th land. Hopefully getting to reach the point where he can double spell soon. That's the real strength of these Thoughtseize decks against control strategies, is having Thoughtseize be this sort of preemptive way to pave the way.
Mullen shocks to 14. He's going to try the Inverter of Truth. And that's just going to eat that Sinister Sabotage you knew about.
Playing against a deck that is 1/3 Hero's Downfall sounds tough.
Yeah. Here is Dig Through Time for Mogelgaard.
Gotta feel good about that.
I imagine these players often do. I think that the height of how angry I get about something very innocuous in Magic is watching my opponent resolve Dig Through Time. I'm just so envious of that other person.
You?
Yeah, I cannot believe that you just get to do that.
Other people get to play this card too? Come on.
Teferi goes to 3 and is joined by Narset. Narset will -2. Mogelgaard finds an Elspeth. There's going to be Sons at Nemesis, the new one from Theros Beyond Death.
That's a way to actually start getting closer to closing this game, which is exactly what Mogelgaard is looking for. It feels like he's got a lot of lock pieces now. Just needs to actually get Mullen to 0 life.
Enjoy the Gideon emblem and 3 Planeswalkers that are not Gideon combo.
I'm going to go ahead and label that a non-bow.
It's very flavorful because Gideon died in the lore.
Dude. Too soon.
Pack Rat for Mullen, and Mogelgaard's going to Mystical Dispute that one. Do it the hard way, pay 3. Mullen's going to play a Fabled Passage, going to fetch right away. Finds an island. If you played that first, you could have paid for the rat. We'll see what the follow-up is. Dig Through Time, all right. They both got it. You kind of got to carefully think about what you leave behind in the Inverter deck. going to keep one of the hero's downfalls in that pile as he takes a look at the top 7.
I wonder if there's ever a line in the inverter deck where you want to have 2 inverters and just make it so you can never deck and you always have a 6/6 coming. Just like 3 or 4 counter spells and an inverter. Assume it'll work out eventually. The 6/6 will kill them or you'll just shuffle it back in your deck.
I like how cavalier you make it sound compared to how stressful that sounds to me.
Well, so, I mean, different strokes and all that, but I like making Magic about things that are within the rules of Magic, but not really Magic, you know what I mean? Dredge, big favorite of mine. Infect, that sort of thing.
Sure. I like a good, honest card like a Spell Snare. Or the Spell Pierce.
Yeah, I just feel like you also like things that aren't real Magic, like Unbeatable Teamer.
Unbeatable Teamer's nice. Narset goes looking. Narset misses. Time Raveler pluses, and here is the big one. Teferi Hero Dominaria goes to 5. Mogelgaard with 3 mana up now.
The door is shutting on this game. Mullen needs to win. Needs to get this game over. If it goes too much longer, it's actually just hopeless.
All right, Mullen's going to start his turn with Thought Erasure. Mogelgaard casts a Dispute against 3 open mana because he's probably pretty fine if Mullen taps out for this.
Yeah, if all of the other cards in your hand are kind of redundant or irrelevant, turning Mystical Dispute into a sort of Time Walk is a great play here.
And you love this. The Dispute just works. Mullen casts Narset of his own. That resolves. Mullen will minus. Take a look at the top 4. Another miss.
Sometimes you just know, like, there's a greater being that decided you were dead this game, and that's the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be able to find a card against a Narset anyway, right? That feels like cheating.
Uh-oh. We might have the whole Gatewatch on the way.
The Gatewatch, of course, consisting of Narset, Teferi, Gideon, and second Teferi. Gideon allies Anagar showing up, though.
Back from the dead.
Makes that Gideon emblem even better. Knight ally joins the party. This game looking really good for Sean Mogelgaard.
Yeah, at this point, Mullen can't even top deck into an I win button.
Yeah, just kind of doesn't have the mana. Not enough doing. Can't beat the emblem. He would need to have a combination of a full combo and a way to deal with that Gideon.
Right, and when you only have 5 lands on the battlefield, that's just not realistic.
It's already kind of a huge ask, even if you got a bunch of lands, you know?
Right, you know, if there weren't a Gideon, Mullen could theoretically have gone inverter into something, but this is not real anymore.
Appropriate we've returned to the Greek mythology plane because it is a Herculean task in front of Mullen this game.
All right, so how long did you work on that?
I like that joke a lot. You laugh. Thoughtseize from Mullen.
Okay.
See some Planeswalkers, see the Supreme Verdict. Do you think Mullen's thinking about what to take or when to concede?
I imagine the thought in Mullen's head at this point is, how do you maximize both percentage points you have this game? You have to actually figure out how to make your 0.5% to win into 2% to win.
Drown in the lock on ally token. Yikes. Jace from Prodigy.
A lot of that was likely to try and just keep Narset around. Because that is one of the ways you can actually choke the resources that Mogelgaard has available. Teferis aren't actually drawing cards, your cantrips aren't good, and so on.
Makes sense. And the hero is actually just going to -3, get rid of that Narset. Time Raveler, going to go to 2, bounce the Jace. Mogelgaard draws a card. Mullen is at 12. Gideon can close this pretty quickly as you see it plus an attack for 5, Mullen to 7.
If Mogelgaard just plays this Elspeth, Mullen will be facing very lethal.
There is Elspeth, Sun's Nemesis. Starts on 5 loyalty. It's going to -2 to make 2 1/1 human soldiers.
Kind of outlandish that Mogelgaard just made 2 tokens, and it is less than. They are dwarfed by being less than half the number of planeswalkers Mogelgaard has.
Mullen's going to draw. He'll dig through time. It's a last-ditch effort.
I mean, that's a start. If there's a way back in this game, that's probably how it begins.
Looking at 7 cards, very powerful. Just under minute 20 now. Mullen selects 2 from the dig. Plays a swamp. Here's a tap of 4. It's an inverter. That's going to be countered, though. It's going to be Censor, and now Mullen packs it in. We are going to game 3.
Interesting enough, Mullen actually did have an avenue to win there. If Mogelgaard ended up just not dealing with the inverter gets to trump, Mullen gets to play a Jace the next turn. I think that was well navigated for what was a fairly hopeless situation.
Yeah, if you get the inverter down, it stops you from taking lethal. You attack down the Gideon because you got too much power. Then you get to shove through the emblem. Like, Gideon's dead. Inverter does have a lot of power. Over on StarCityGames.com, we got a sale going in. It is a nice one. Sometimes we have some select stuff. Yeah, do some digging, find out what's on sale. I'll tell you what, Magic cards.
Love those.
10% off.
Which ones?
Magic cards.
Which ones?
Yes.
Who's on first?
Use coupon code SCG10. Do you get it? Because 10% is the discount.
What does SCG spell?
Easy to remember. Star City Games, the number 10, 1 and 0. Don't spell it out. That won't work. SCG10. Save 10% on Magic singles.
Love to save on Magic singles.
Yeah. I mean, I buy them all the time. May as well save. And you know what? You want to save 5% on top of that? You got $8 a month? SCG Premium is the way to go.
I mean, that stuff basically pays for itself if you're looking at doing any large sort of purchase. And I know that sounds super salesy. It is, after all. But for real, if you're actually just spending, $100, $150, it's almost free to just become a premium member right there.
Sullivan's Satchel. I gotta say, Patrick Sullivan's mailbag article, that's worth $8 a month for me.
Oh, absolutely. Look, does he look happy to be doing this?
No. He does it for you. I think I pay more than $8 a month for Netflix, and I don't even like it. But I like Magic. This is a deal.
So does that mean you're the person who everyone else uses the Netflix password from?
Yeah,
or are you just
passing it around?
You're the millennial who got suckered into having it on their card? I'm that person, so I empathize.
You gotta take one for the team now and again. Island go for Mullen. We're going to see a Hallowed Fountain shocked in for Mogelgaard to 18. Mullen's going to fire off an opt. That one not worth a dispute. Mullen scries bottom and draws. Down Catacomb, pass. Mogelgaard, no action. Turn 2, land is Field of Ruin. End step, you see another opt from Mullen.
Very decisive individual.
A lot of opting. But if he's so decisive, why can he not decide on Ixalan or Dominant?
I actually was about to say the exact same words.
Island go for Mullen.
I hope an invasion one shows up, so it at least, like, maybe an F&M one thrown in there as well. Because then it looks intentional.
Yeah, you got the full spread.
Right, I can respect that.
Something for everyone. Omen of the Sea for Mogelgaard here. So we go to turn 3. Irrigated Farmland, played tapped. So Mullen will draw, plays land number 4. No mana troubles this game just yet. An attempt at a Narset. Mogelgaard has a Doma's Veto, but he does not have blue-white up. just going to Omen of the Sea in response. That works. Scry's one top, one bottom. But that Narset's going to resolve.
That's a big win for Mullen. That's going to lock down a lot of Mogelgaard's Planeswalker's abilities.
Narset's going to quickly go to 3. Mullen takes a look at the top 4. We saw some misses at game number 2, but this time he finds Thoughtseize. That ain't bad.
And Mogelgaard may get a little bit punished here for doing this Omen of the Sea when he did.
Mullen passes. He's going to wait on that Thoughtseize.
Sure, and this is Mullen trying to use it to force through a later spell.
Another Field Rune for Mogelgaard. I love a Disciplined Thoughtseize.
Oh, big fan of Disciplined Thoughtseizes.
Here is Gideon Allies Endegar for Mullen. Or for Mogelgaard, rather.
Nice when there's only one open mana. You aren't asking if it resolves, you're telling your opponent it resolves.
Yeah, can't dispute that one. Gideon makes a Knight Ally, and now we find out what Mullen can do about it.
And another nice thing about this is creating 2 bodies that Mullen is sort of priced into answering here means that Mogelgaard is able to adequately pressure this Narset, which blue-white historically has struggled to do a little bit.
Narset -2s once again for Mullen. You see a Thoughtseize, a Dig Through Time, a Watery Grave. Not sure what the 4th card is. I want to say Pack Rat. Can't take that one.
Is this going to put Mullen up to 8 cards in hand without a land drop? Might force the hand on that Thoughtseize.
It's a little bit tough not having a second black source. Like, it's not just the 5th land. Sometimes he wants to cast 2 black spells as he takes a Thoughtseize, so he has 2 of those in hand. Can't cast an Inverter off of 1 black. He fires off a Thoughtseize. We'll get a look at Mogelgaard's hand. Pretty stocked grip. Mystical Dispute, Teferi Time Raveler, Censor, couple Gideon of the Trials, and a Dovin's Veto.
Do you ever Thoughtseize someone, they put their hand on the table and you hear it thunk?
Yeah. What do you want?
It's kind of the vibe I'm getting here. Especially if Mogelgaard can just find another colored source or 2. It's going to be really hard to fight through Dovin's Veto, Censor, Dispute, these Planeswalkers. It's a big ask for this combo deck.
Mystical Dispute will be the take. Mullen to 18. And just has to pass from there. So now that Narset is under threat of Knight Ally. And Mullen is under threat of Gideon, as Gideon of the Trials shows up as well.
Mogelgaard picking up that island here is huge.
Mystical Dispute for Mullen. And Mogelgaard's going to fight. We knew about that Censor. Nice to get in the Censor at this phase of the game. Emblem shows up. Gideon could make another Knight or plus. Looks like it's going to be the first, as you see Knight Ally attacks down Narset, and a second one shows up. Right, Mullen draws. It's a land, but it's an island.
And this is one of the things where we see these allied color mana bases suffer. Your deck has to be able to regularly cast Thassa's Oracle and Jace Wielder of Mysteries, a blue spell. Then also wants to cast Thoughtseize on turn 1. You end up in these weird and really hard to actually navigate through squeezes in your own mana base, and we're seeing that come up here.
Yeah, you don't register Choked Estuary if you don't mean it.
And you know, to be honest with you, I just don't register Choked Estuary.
I would hope to never mean it.
Yeah, I love this Inverter deck. Do not love Choked Estuary.
Mullen considering starting with a Dig Through Time. It's a tough spot, though. He's going to open on Thoughtseize. Sees that second Gideon, that Time Raveler, and that Dovin's Veto. This is all known.
Right. At this point, Mullen likely has something in mind, or is just trying to get a little bit more of a discount on this Dig Through Time in order to have another spell up on the back of it, depending on what cards he sees.
Gets that Veto out of there. Means he has a window to resolve Dig Through Time. Guess they leave a mana up on top of it as well.
And I'm anxious about Mullen's ability to actually win through all of these Gideons. Now
Looks
that there's
tough.
an emblem and a backup one in Mogelgaard's hand, that means Mullen is going to be priced into doing all of that in one turn cycle. And when you have a Teferi Time Raveler coming down from Mogelgaard here in a moment, that means Mullen's just going to have to do it all in his turn.
Also, before he dies to these allies. Just a lot of asks, not a lot of time.
Right, Mullen is on a 2-turn clock right now.
It's a tough spot. Right, he selects his cards for dig through time. Choked Estuary. He means it. It reveals an island. Right, back over to Mogelgaard. Got that backup Gideon, got its Teferi Time Raveler, draws and plays Castle Vantress. Ally to 5. Gideon's gonna 0. Looks like 13.
Oh, Mullen is an interesting line here with this Tyrant scoring.
He's casting it. Bounce the big one. Still 8 coming across. That's half Mullen's life total.
Quick maths.
Mogelgaard can't quite cast everything, but redeploying the Gideon, that makes sense. That's going to make another knight. Mullen facing down, very lethal next turn. Draws a card, it's an island, that's no help. And he's just got to concede. Sean Mogelgaard is going to win 2-1 over Collins Mullen. Now these players, they are near the